Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be switching it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about our top 24 tight end rankings. We talked about our quarterback ones in our last episode. And in this episode, you're getting two for the price of one. Joe and I are both giving you our rankings to see how it all stacks up.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So why don't we start off in tier number one? Who do you got there?
Yeah, at the number one spot, I've got the guy, Travis Kelce. And number two, I've got Sam Laporta.
The guy. Joe
The guy,
refers to
yeah,
Travis
Travis
Kelce as
Kelce.
the guy. Well, I also have the guy at number one for me, Travis Kelce, and then number two, Kyle Pitts. Now, I don't know about you, probably not, being that you're a big Laporta guy. I almost thought about Travis Kelce being standalone by himself in this tier. I was very close. There's a decent difference between Pitts and Kelce for me. However, we could see Kelce start to regress, and I mean the ascension is there for Pitts with Kirk Cousins. So I mean, right now that to me is looking very enticing. Obviously, Laporta had a great season for you. I can understand why you have him in tier one there.
Yeah, honestly, I was just looking at the points, and I've got Travis Kelce 25 points higher than Laporta. But interestingly enough, the next tier starts 25 points below Sam Laporta as well. So it's kind of the same difference either way. I technically could have made Travis Kelce standalone, but I do think, Laporta is good enough and that he had a good enough year last year to put him up there with Travis Kelce.
Are you not concerned about Laporta's injury concerns that he's dealing with recently? You think he's going to
No.
play a full 17 games?
Let's see here. What do I got? I've got him statted for the full 17 games, so
I
I'm
have him
not really
statted for
concerned.
15, which I think might contribute to my later ranking of his.
Yeah, that would make a ton of sense. And as much as I was looking for like the touchdown regression for him, I've only got him projected for one less touchdown, and largely just because, like, who else is going to score in the red zone if they don't, if they choose to pass it, they don't run it, and it's not Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Jameson Williams is number two. Donovan Peoples-Jones just got cut. I don't know who's going to be, after in the 3 spot. So Laporta, I think, should still be used heavily in the red zone.
Now, with Kelce, do you think he's flying under the radar, or do you think he is possibly at the point where he's going to start to regress? I mean, there were people talking about him being a first-round pick in snake drafts last year, people spending, buku bucks to go get this guy. But I feel like people are kind of slumbering on him right now.
Yeah, people definitely, I feel like, are sleeping on Travis Kelce. That, I think age is the big factor. He didn't have as dominant as a year last year. And so many people are
He was
concerned.
injured, though.
He was injured. And I think just so many people are worried that Kansas City's like not going to utilize him in the regular season, trying to save him for that postseason as they're trying to become that dynasty, win 3 Super Bowls in a row. But he also just, like, during the offseason here, told Andy Reid, like, hey, put it on me, baby. I want to I want that heavy workload again. And who's to say that doesn't happen? I mean, I think him being injured, during training camp last year, obviously missing game 1 last year as well, had a lot to do with possibly the, easing him into the action and lower stats, where this year he's fully healthy. I think they're, despite the upgrades of wide receiver, I think they're still going to need Travis Kelce to be a dominant force in the inside.
It's just so interesting because we've seen an influx of young talent now at the tight end position, and so many are so enamored by your Kyle Pitts, your Dalton Kincaids, your Sam Laportas. Well, they're forgetting old man Kelce, who's been Mr. Reliable, and so it's one of those things where it's like I don't know, people just aren't talking about him.
Yeah, I just think I just think people don't want to be almost like a year too late on him, or the fact that was the last year of his truly a sign of regression, and
Is he
then
going to hit a cliff? Basically,
is he going to hit the cliff, and then he's not going to be that dominant player, and they don't want to be like left with the bag. I feel like
bag is usually a good thing, Joe. Bag means you got money.
Yeah, but I've also heard it used in that term, like
You're holding the
you don't.
bag.
Yeah, you're still holding the bag. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, enough about bags. Who do you got in tier number 2?
All right. In tier 2 and number 3, I've got Evan Ingram. Number 4, Dalton Kincaid. 5, Kyle Pitts. 6, Trey McBride. And 7, Mark Andrews.
All right. So for me, I've got number 3, Evan Ingram. 4, Dalton Kincaid. 5, George Kittle. 6, Sam Laporta. 7, Mark Andrews. And 8, Trey McBride. Now, I knew you and I were going to have some differences in this tier, but I'm also a little surprised based on our similarities. You and I
Yeah,
both
very
had
similar
Evan.
players in this year.
Yeah, you and I both had Evan Ingram at 3, a guy who honestly I didn't think was going to be this high. I would not rank him this high normally, but we create our rankings based on the projections that we did for every team. So I gotta say, I am quite surprised. I would not put him in that 3 spot. I mean, he had a dominant year last year. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tweet that I saw today. Wolf of Roto Street put out there. Evan Ingram had more catches with 114 than everyone in the NFL besides CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was the second most catches by a tight end in NFL history, and he also had the second highest single spike week of 32 fantasy points of 2023. And not to mention, Calvin Ridley's now gone from this offense this year. And I mean, he ranked last year first in targets with 143. He also had 8.4 targets per game, which was second. And he had 6+ targets in 16 straight games. I don't, who's to say that we don't see more from him? And we saw that report with Trevor Lawrence last year. They've got, Christian Kirk's still there. Brian Thomas Jr., obviously, Gabe Davis, but no more Calvin Ridley. That's a big part of the lot of targets that were left.
It's amazing how Evan Ingram really reclaimed his career because he was deemed a bust, after his stint with the New York Giants. Signed a prove-it deal with the Jaguars. Good for him. And, he's turned rags to riches right now. So, I mean, I give him a lot of credit because, he had the talent. Honestly, he just had the dropsies.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to have that problem anymore. It seems like you see him making the plays instead of dropping the ball and not making those plays that was happening in New York. I think that maybe just the bright lights of New York got to him, and now that he's with Jacksonville, everything's working out better.
One player I am surprised about is Dalton Kincaid. I thought I'd have him much higher. He's a guy who I have, he was a my guy for me last year. I was really excited about him. I really thought he would take the next step. He was kind of the Travis Kelce of the Bills offense. That's why I believe they traded up to go get him, because Kelce has beaten them time and time again. Diggs is no longer there. Kincaid is now there to really, I think, become the alpha of this offense. If there would be an alpha, they could just, share the ball around. That could possibly be the case. The thing that concerns me is with Dawson Knox. At the end of the day, when he was not on the field, Kincaid he ate, right? But when it came to him being on the field, the 12 personnel didn't work too good.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the one downfall. I'm surprised I've been able to creep into your brain there and get you off of that. I mean, last year you were all about Kincaid, very, very high on him, obviously, as you mentioned. He's my guy. But I think that is something to worry about. But at the end of the day, Diggs is gone. There's not a true alpha on this offense. Somebody's going to emerge. And on the flip side of that argument is it very well could be him, being that there's not too many guys, a part of that core that it was with the offense last year, and Kincaid was, and not, guys like Khalil Shakir, but Curtis Samuel is a new guy. Obviously, Ken Coleman, who they drafted, is new as well. So it will be interesting to see who kind of emerges as the top target for Allen in this offense.
Now, I know I'm actually surprised I haven't gotten flack from you yet, because I got Kittle ahead of Sam Laporta. I thought for sure you were going to blast me. Here's the thing. I'll defend myself before you decide there to be an onslaught against me. I think when it comes to Laporta, I think he's in for a touchdown regression, for one. And for two, I'm not like you. I think he's not going to play 17 games. Soft tissue injuries are not easy to deal with, and I believe he's suffered from a hamstring injury right now in training camp. So to me, that concerns me as far as how much he's up to game speed early on in the season. It might take him a little bit. So there's no doubt. I agree with you. The weapons are abysmal outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he should continue to do well. Whereas Kittle, I'm not a huge Kittle fan. I'm actually shocked that I had Kittle as high as I
No, that's
did.
what I was surprised about because I know you're not a big Kittle guy.
Well, I think partly the reason why is this whole Brandon Ayuk melodrama. We don't know what's going to happen with the guy. If he does stay with the Niners, I think you and I both are a believer that, hey, he hasn't been practicing with the team. Is it going to take him a little bit to get in football shape? So, could Kittle be the beneficiary there? If Brandon Ayuk leaves, and let's say they trade into the Steelers or the Commanders or whatever. Now, mind you, they say they're going to get a receiver back or whatever. But regardless, Kittle, to me, gets a huge stock up. I mean, you got to remember, Purdy looked at his way. When Purdy first came on the scene, Kittle and him had a really good connection. For whatever reason, last year, it wasn't as good as it was the year prior. But I anticipate it's going to be pretty good.
Not so sure about that. Kittle had a very good year last year. The key for Kittle is Debo or Ayuk have to be out. When Debo or Ayuk are out, Kittle eats and has huge games, and he just has those huge spike games. He's just not ultimately that consistent.
So you're not wrong. I guess he had over 1,000 yards. So that was actually the best he's done in a long time. I guess it was a touchdown piece. I mean, he had 6 touchdowns before in 2022. He had 11 touchdowns. So I think that was the difference. I guess I was looking at.
Right. Which we talk about Laporte and the touchdown regression. It's touchdowns are one of those sticky stats. It's hard to repeat those. And they're kind of an anomaly. It's hard to really project those out. But there's no doubt he could easily get more than 6 touchdowns this year.
Now, 2 guys I'm personally fading at this point when it comes to auction drafts. Just not willing to spend the money. I know I have them in the same tier, but I'm not spending for Mark Andrews or Trey McBride. Andrews scares me. Honestly, I think Isaiah Likely may take that next step and really start to eat into his target share there. So to me, I have Andrews in this tier, and I kept him in that tier because I'm purely looking at it from a point standpoint based on my projections. But I was very close to dropping him down into another tier. With McBride, I think he's good. I just don't think he'll be as good as you think he'll be because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the guy that takes over in that offense.
Yeah, I think Kyler can support multiple weapons there. I obviously we've talked about that. I'm not worried about it, but I do think you've got some merit to Mark Andrews. Just with his health and everything, he really hasn't been able to stay healthy over the years. And they're even talking about using Isaiah Likely, as a wide receiver potentially. So, even though Mark Andrews will be the starting tight end, there is a chance that Likely could eat into that target share a little bit if they do utilize him as a receiver, because we know that they're not very depth there.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. All right, Joe, let's head over to tier number 3. Who do you got there?
All right, in tier 3 at number 8, I've got George Kittle. Number 9, Jake Ferguson. 10, David Njoku. 11, Brock Bowers. At 12, Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Dialing back the clock 3-4 years ago. For me, I've got number 9, Brock Bowers. 10, Jake Ferguson. 11, David Njoku. And 12, Pat Freiermuth. Now, I am surprised, Joe. Why don't you have Kittle in tier 2? You're a big Kittle fan. I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah, honestly, just kind of the way the points worked out. Partially, I think a lot of those guys that I have in there are playing 17 games outside of Mark Andrews. But I've got Kittle playing 16 games. I've projected for 192 points, and those other guys I got over 200. So
that was kind of.
And I think it's just partially. It's hard to stat out Kittle. I feel like because he's kind of one of those boom or bust players, and I think it's it's hard to chart him out for the whole season to kind of be consistent, just because his overall stats could look good at the end of the year. But I think the ride to get there is like a little bit of a roller coaster ride. You're really super happy some weeks and then disappointed in others.
Now, one guy I'm really excited about is Brock Bowers. He's a guy who I almost would consider ranking higher, which is kind of crazy. But when it comes down to Brock Bowers, They have nobody in Vegas. Nobody. Michael Gallup retired. You have Devontae Adams. You got Trey Tucker, who kind of stretches the field. You got Jacoby Myers. I think Brock Bowers could really be a high potent weapon in this offense. Talking about him possibly being a joker, lining up at fullback, lining up at different positions, outside of just being in tight end. The guy's going to be used all over the field. So to me, I mean, I'm excited about the use of Brock Bowers personally. And what says that he can't have it? We've talked about him in the past. What says he can't have a year? I'm not saying exactly like Laporta, but I'm saying why can't he come close?
Yeah, no, I mean, at first, looking at things, I was really disappointed with Brock Bowers' landing spot, in Las Vegas. But the more that the offseason's kind of taken place and I've thought about it and just seeing how, the Raiders are ultimately utilizing him and changing up, where he plays in different formations as well, I think they really are going to put an emphasis to get this guy the ball. And, we keep talking about how there's not really that third option behind Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. It really could just be him, and I think he could be in for a pretty good rookie season.
So talk to me about this Hunter Henry business. Why do we got
Sure.
him at number 12 here? Is it because the quarterback's best friend is a tight end and you expect Drake May to be the starter?
Well, man. We always talk about young quarterback's best friend is the tight
I
end
knew it.
position, but I just think this guy had 6 touchdowns last year too. He's honestly been pretty good over the last couple of years. Mike Gesicki isn't there. I know they brought in Austin Hooper. I don't know how much of a factor he's going to be, but I just think everyone overlooks Hunter Henry, and I just think that he's going to potentially get utilized more than people think. And this is a very young receiving core that they have. Not too many experienced guys. He is that experienced guy. I think even if Jacoby Brissett starts, I think they're still going to be utilizing him. And when New England's gotten down in the red zone these past few years, Hunter Henry has been a big target monster in the red zone, and that's where he gets the touchdowns. So I think there's a chance he definitely exceeds that 6 touchdown mark this year.
I mean, you make a compelling case. I mean, there aren't a lot of bona fide weapons in New England, so it's not out of the question. I haven't seen a lot of people have Hunter Henry ranked that high, so it did catch me by surprise. But you make a good point.
Yeah, I just think he's not an exciting name. He's not on an exciting offense, but I think he could still perform decently well, out of that New England offense.
All right, Joe, let's head over to number 4. What do you got there?
All right, at number 13, I've got Cole Kmet, 14, Dalton Schultz, 15, Tyler Conklin, 16, TJ Hawkinson, 17, Pat Freiermuth, and at 18, Dallas Goedert.
All right, at number 13, I've got Taysom Hill, 14, Dallas Goedert, 15, Juwan Johnson, 16, Dalton Schultz, 17, Jonnu Smith, and 18, TJ Hawkinson. So we've got a couple of similar players here. I'm a little surprised how low you ranked Goddard. I mean, when you look at how Kellen Moore has done as an offensive coordinator with his previous stints, the tight end, especially in the red zone, got a huge uptick. So I'm a little surprised that you don't feel that Goddard's going to have a good year.
I think part of the ranking definitely is I've only got him statted to play 13 games. So had I had got him to statted to play more, I'm sure you've got him at 14. I probably would have had him in that similar range.
Makes sense.
But I do agree with you. I mean, we know Kellen Moore, tight ends seem to do well in with his system, and I think Goddard is. I mean, if he is able to stay healthy, he could have a resurgent year. Last year was kind of a down year for him. He definitely could do better with Moore there.
Now, Hawkinson's a tough one here. How many games did you project him playing? I think that's the biggest thing. Him coming off ACL, getting the ACL late. I have him playing 11 games. I wonder if that's too much.
I've got him playing 10.
Okay. So I've got him one extra game than you do.
Yeah, we're around the same mark there. Yeah, he is kind of tough. I'm not sure when they're going to, trying to project when they're going to bring him back. Just based on some things that I was reading, I felt like 10 was a kind of a safe mark.
Now, I know I'm going to do a little teaser here. There's a few players that I have that you don't. Taysom Hill, which I'm surprised the do-it-all Houdini over in New Orleans. Seems like he's, what there. It might be just him, honestly, the way that Dennis Allen talks, how they're going to use Taysom Hill. I know he's not really a tight end. Is that kind of why you didn't rank him here?
I did. I think part of it was on our thing. I put like his rushing stats as a quarterback, and not along with the like him being playing tight end. I'm sure if I would have put like those rushing marks at the tight end position, he would have shot up there. But he does most of his running though lined up as a quarterback, so I thought it was more fitting to put those stats there. So
Technicalities.
yeah. So I mean, I do like Taysom Hill. I mean, you hear them. I mean, Dennis Allen doesn't talk highly of many players. Kendrick Miller keeps getting it week in and week out here. But Taysom Hill is somebody he actually talks positively about there.
One guy I want to mention. You don't. Well, I'll let you give the case for Conklin, Conk. But for me, when it comes to Jonnu Smith, I think he's a guy that's flying under the radar.
Yeah,
Miami,
I'm
I know
glad
hasn't.
you brought him up because when you said Jonnu Smith, I was like, what?
Joe, Miami doesn't have any tight end. He's
Miami
the
doesn't
guy.
use the tight end.
I know they don't, but they've never had somebody athletic like him. To
Gesicki's
me,
not athletic.
not like that. I think Jonnu. I think Jonnu could surprise this year. I really do. As you can see,
Yeah, I'm not
he's
drinking that Kool-Aid.
capable. He's shown that he's capable.
Oh
He
yeah,
showed it in Tennessee. He showed it in Atlanta. He's capable.
right. But who was that with? Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith loves the guy and figures out a way to use him. I don't trust McDaniel in Miami to draw plays up for him. They utilize pretty much everyone else on the field. They're speed guys. I was kind of confused why they even brought Jonnu Smith in there. Now, if Jonnu Smith would have went to like the Steelers and fell at Arthur Smith, I would have been drinking that Kool-Aid right with you.
Oh boy. All right. What about you? Go ahead. What I don't have Conklin. Rodgers doesn't use the tight end at all. Why would you say Conklin is going to be? What's the best tight end that Rodgers has produced? Jermichael Finley back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, sure, it wasn't a focal point in Green Bay, but I think it's possible that he is utilized. We've seen him play well. I mean, you've never been a Conklin guy. I've always kind of brought him up, even at like waiver wire pickups, and he'd laugh at me, or I'd put him in the start sits, and you'd laugh at me. But I think Conklin's another kind of Hunter Henry. He's overlooked. He's a decent player, and honestly, like outside of Garrett Wilson. Jets don't really have much. I mean, Mike Williams is only going to play a few games before he's out of there. So they're going to need somebody to step up outside of Garrett Wilson.
Mark my words, and I'll bet you for it, for some sort of dinner or something. Jonnu Smith will outscore Tyler Conklin this season. Book it right now.
Oh, I'd easily take that bet with you.
All right, deal. The bet's sealed.
Yeah,
we just got to figure out we got to figure out.
We'll have to figure out what we're wagering here, but yeah, I mean, I think I got that easy with Conklin.
Well, I'm looking forward to winning that one. All right, let's head over to tier number 5. Let's close it out. Who do you got there?
All right, at 19, I've got Luke Musgrave. 20, Noah Fant. 21, Chig Okonkwo. 22, Juwan Johnson. 23, Isaiah Likely. And at 24, Cade Otton.
All right, so for me at number 19, Luke Musgrave, 20, Isaiah Likely, 21, Cole Kmet, 22, Hunter Henry, 23, Chigoziem Okonkwo, and 24, Noah Fant. Now, I can see that you and I are quite different on Cole Kmet. Is that just the idea that a rookie quarterback's best friend is going to be the tight end? I just think that with the Bears, I mean, they got a lot of weapons with those 3 receivers and Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. And you got Swift out of the backfield. So I just don't know how many targets Kmet's going to get.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, he was just kind of all these guys in my tier 4, honestly, were just so close in points. But I think Cole Kmet, though, he's talented. He's shown he can do it. And I think, Chicago will still find a way to utilize this guy. Not expecting a huge season from him, but just, he set it out to be my tight end 13.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Closing out the show here. I think that the tight end position in general has improved vastly. We've seen some really great young players come into the league and really, I think changed the landscape. I think it's made it a much more exciting position where it's really been a wasteland. If you see here, I, I mean, honestly, I mean, tier 4 and tier 5 are kind of bleak. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you're looking at tier 3 and above in your draft. If you're listening still at tier 5, you must be hoping for a diamond in the rough here. And the only diamond in the rough that I'll tell you, I think, of this bunch is I liked your call with Hunter Henry. Obviously, you had him higher than I did, much higher. But I'm going to go Luke Musgrave because he's got a lot of potential. If the guy can stay healthy and Kraft doesn't really get involved too much in the offense, he's an athletic guy. I think he could do pretty well. He has a possibility of maybe kind of going up a few pegs. But other than that, and I like Likely too. That's the other one. I'm really worried about Andrews. I could see him when we start talking about Fab. I could see him being a guy that we're like, hey, you should put your Fab down for Isaiah Likely.
Well, definitely. I mean, if Mark Andrews goes down, he's already shown last year he can step in and kind of fulfill that role and be a starter, a relevant fantasy starter for you. The one thing going back to Luke Musgrave, I mean, before the season started, I was high on him, but lately there's been a lot of talk of Tucker Kraft, and it's making me a little nervous about Musgrave.
That's not good to hear.
No, I mean, I just saw like a report yesterday, just people saying how good Tucker Kraft looks, and it's got me a little bit nervous for Musgrave. But even though, I do see the athleticism, and I think it's there. It'll be interesting to see how that tight end room shakes out there.
So that does it for our top 24 tight end rankings and tiers. You got 2 for 1 deal with Joe and I's rankings. Hopefully you found that helpful as you prepare for your drafts. Hopefully, big draft weekend coming up. That's where most of the drafts happen. So hopefully that helps you. Coming up, we're going to be talking about running backs and wide receivers, the 2 biggies. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.